Fireworks and happy dances, but is it enough to sway the Republican National Convention Selection Committee? And the VA scandal hits close to home. Those stories and the rest of the week's news coming up. Welcome everyone, I'm Nick Haynes and thanks for joining us again on the program that goes beyond the soundbite and takes you behind the headlines, making news in Kansas City, dissecting this week's stories on both sides of state line. UMKC journalism professor, star columnist and the host of Up to Date on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske. From 41 Action News, reporter Garrett Hake. From the editorial board of the Kansas City Star, Barbara Shelley. And star political reporter, columnist and blogger, Dave Helling. Were they swayed? The Republican National Convention Selection Committee in town this week, checking out the city during a two-day inspection trip.
Here we go.
When we came in yesterday, I saw people who'd walked out of their storefronts and were waving at us as we went by. And I have to tell you, I went to the New York City convention, as I said earlier this morning, and it wasn't always waves. I mean, sometimes it was a different gesture.
Is fireworks at the Performing Arts Center and dancing with the mayor enough to convince the GOP to pick Kansas City over Dallas, Denver and Cleveland for its national convention in 2016? You were with them all week, Garrett Hake.
It won't be the fireworks that seals the deal, but Kansas City has had a chance now to show off the two big things that really might help us. The Sprint Center and all the bells and whistles and everything it could do. The entire committee finally got inside to take a look. And Chairman Priebus said yesterday the Sprint Center is really the only option if they really want to do the convention in late June. And he's sort of on the record saying that's his preference. So number one, you got the calendar, and they got a chance to see that building. And number two, for the first time, we heard the big number, which is how close Kansas City's gotten to that $50 or $60 million goal. Last week, Cleveland said they were at about $25 million. Yesterday, the folks from KCCVA came out and said we're at about $30 million. That's probably close enough to hit that target by late summer, and both of those things will make a big difference in how the committee looks at what they're going to do.
Dick Cheney, the former vice president, was also in town this week, and he was also favoring Kansas City with the Republican National Committee Selection Committee.
You know, I talked to people who were inside the hall when they heard Vice President Cheney speak to them, and what struck them was just how long and how enthusiastic he was. Looking back, 40, 50 years to the 1976 convention here in Kansas City, Nick, that was the last real political convention, at least a lot of insiders think so, because it was a big fight between Ford and Reagan, and the vote at the convention actually mattered. Cheney waxed very nostalgic about that convention. He was for Gerald Ford back then, and what that convention meant for the party. Interesting moment for our little convention bid here.
Now, the local bid committee was looking desperately to have local businesses and citizens to help them with this week. And I saw one of their pleas was to have downtown office buildings, Dave Helling, to keep their lights on at night to make it look more alive. Did they comply?
Some did, some did not. I don't think that was the gesture that will succeed in landing the convention for Kansas City one way or another. Covering up the totally nude sign on Grand, I don't think that has a big impact either. But you do get the sense that Kansas Cityans did show a level of enthusiasm that the party, if it comes down to a tie, if it comes down to a decision between a Dallas, a Kansas City, Denver, or Cleveland, might do us some good. I mean, they do get the sense that we care, that we want this. And Enid Mickelson said yesterday, we want to come to
Who was the person dancing with the mayor?
Chair of the site selection committee said, we do want to come to a place that wants to have us. And I do think that there is a sense that of the four remaining cities, Kansas City is most eager to get the Republicans to come to town. And so that's really might sway things if it's a tie. Now, quickly, Nick, if it isn't a tie, if Dallas has more money, which it does, if Cleveland is more politically important, which it is, if Denver is a cooler place, which it is, then Kansas City is going to finish out of the money. But if it's a tie, we have a shot.
Barbara.
I think they're going to look at our hotel capacity as well. I think maybe we missed an opportunity. If they really wanted to make downtown look lively, they could have offered free beer in the Power and Light District all night long, and then we would have looked really swinging.
And they didn't do that.
No.
There's two elements to what you both just said. I think on the hotel issue, they knew the number of hotel rooms we had when we submitted our bids several months ago. That hasn't changed and won't change. So if Kansas City was going to get eliminated for a lack of hotel rooms, that could have been done a while ago. And one thing that Chairman Priebus did rule out yesterday was the idea that Cleveland being in Ohio will really matter.
Right.
You know, that there's no political gain, and in fact, history has shown there's maybe a loss of putting your convention in a competitive state.
I want to talk, there's a lot of other things we want to talk about on this program, but one thing that did come up was the idea that they wanted to have an earlier convention and that Kansas City may be the only site that has a arena that is free during June, which is a month where they may want to have this convention.
Right. It's actually May that you need to have the convention, even ready, the arena. And even if you hold it in late June, you need 6 to 8, maybe 10 weeks ahead of time to build all the stuff you need to do. Kansas City is uniquely positioned. Reince Priebus said that yesterday. It's a nice little nugget is the way he put it. And while Garrett is right, he said repeatedly politics won't play into this. We'll see. I mean, you know, first of all, it's not his choice. And second, you know, again, if all things are equal, then maybe politics sways the final decision-making process.
Let me just add on to that. Rest assured, politics will play into this. This is a very political decision. This party is desperate to regain the White House. At the end of the day, Nick, this will be a cabal of Republican leaders getting together and trying to figure out what's the best place to have
Just
this.
remind me one more time, Garrett, where this would take place in Kansas City.
Kansas City would host the event at the Sprint Center.
Okay, are you sure it's the Sprint Center?
Yes.
Could it be at the Sprint Mobile Center? Perhaps the new name for the downtown arena. Now, one of the Metro's largest employers, Overland Park-based Sprint, close to sealing a $32 billion deal to buy rival phone carrier T-Mobile. The merger of the nation's third and fourth largest mobile companies could still fall through, but its implications for Kansas City are enormous. If the two companies merge, it appears that the head of T-Mobile would lead the combined company. Sprint CEO Dan Hesse told Bloomberg News he wouldn't mind passing off leadership duties in a merged company and that he's weighing career options. The Japanese chairman of Sprint doesn't like flying to Kansas City, apparently, and has already set up a shadow headquarters in Silicon Valley, where the Wall Street Journal reports top Sprint executives are required to fly out several times a week to meet. T-Mobile is also based on the West Coast in Bellevue, Washington. Are there concerns being raised at this point from Metro political or civic leaders about what this deal might mean for the Metro? Are they crowding the editorial board of the Kansas City Star, gnashing teeth, scratching out their hair, wondering what's going on?
I haven't noticed any teeth gnashers crowding the editorial room yet. But, you know, some analysts are giving this as low as 10 or 20% chance of this merger ever coming through. So I think everybody's just kind of taking a wait-and-see attitude.
The Sprint story has always been something that constantly lingers in this community, and it creates nightmares for some people, thinking, oh, my God, this has been one of our largest employers. This could be a nightmare scenario, but are we making too much of a deal of this,
Well, I don't think so yet, because there, 10, 20% chance on one end, but there's, Sprint making a huge play here that having a stronger number 3 is the way to go, a better way to go for the consumer. I think we should be concerned out here, Nick, because as you pointed out, there is this sort of movement towards California, away from Overland Park. Everyone wants to be meeting out there. The headquarters shift and the brain power seems to be moving towards California. That could mean a huge change for what it happens at the Sprint campus in Overland Park and what it means for us out here.
The Kansas City Star reporting this week that the Fortune 500 list, for instance, that in the past has had up to 4 companies in Kansas City on the Fortune 500 list, only has one now, Seaboard Company. Sprint is no longer considered a Fortune 500 company in Kansas City because it's now owned by a Japanese company. So that does make a difference. Have we seen any noticeable difference, though, in the impact of that foreign ownership in terms of the commitment of Sprint in this community, Dave?
Well, yes. I mean, it has certainly, even before SoftBank bought its portion of the company, Sprint's role in the Kansas City community was greatly diminished from the time when Bill Esri was running the company. They were heavily involved, as you know, with the Union Station effort. The Sprint Center was part of that. And so the company's influence in Kansas City is certainly less today than, say, Cerner might be. Even to a degree, Burns & Mac, Black & Veatch, it's really in the second tier of Kansas City communities or Kansas City companies, and that really was exacerbated when SoftBank bought its share, because in essence now, Nick, no matter what happens with the T-Mobile merger, the oozing away, if you will, of employees from Sprint is probably going to continue, and we'll look up someday and it really won't be here at all.
It was only last week that Missouri Governor Jay Nixon announced he was putting on the August statewide ballot a sales tax hike to improve Missouri highways. Now Nixon says he will vote against the 3/4-cent sales tax increase that will largely improve I-70 because he says it puts an unfair burden on the poor. If this effort is successful, Nixon argues, Missouri will have the dubious distinction of being a state that in a matter of months cuts taxes on lawyers and lobbyists but hiked taxes on bar soap and baseball gloves. Now, might this explain why he placed it on the August ballot when fewer people vote and those that do tend to be more conservative and less favorable to taxes? Barbara?
Well, Nixon, as you know, is a lame duck governor. And so that may be why he is at this point burning bridges instead of building bridges. But he did burn some bridges, first by putting that transportation sales tax on the August ballot. I mean, it doesn't give him much time to mount a campaign, and then coming out actually against it. I mean, Nixon is angry at what the legislature did in the last session. He's angry that they overrode his veto on that income tax cut. And, you know, frankly, I don't think it's a hard sell to tell the public, geez, these guys just passed an income tax cut for the wealthy. And then they're turning around and, you know, going to the ballot with a sales tax increase that's going to cost everybody.
But many labor unions are very much supportive of this tax, and you'd think that that would be a base, obviously, for somebody like Governor Jay Nixon.
Absolutely, and he's in a bit of a political bind here, not just because the unions want to get to work on these roads and bridges, but because these roads and bridges need to be built, not burned. I mean, Missouri and Kansas both get pretty poor reviews on these sort of annual engineering surveys of our infrastructure in these states. This is work that needs to get done. But a sales tax is kind of a regressive way to do it when everyone needs to drive on these roads. And this is something that will have to get solved sooner rather than later. But Governor Nixon's pretty much, you know, put his cards on the table and said it won't be done this way.
By putting it on the ballot in August rather than in November, there's also concern about what happens to the streetcar expansion election that's happening in August as well, and whether that will have implications on that vote, Steve.
It will, and let's be real clear about this, Nick. Kansas City Mayor Sly James talked to Jay Nixon about this and said, don't put your transportation sales tax on the same voting date we're trying to pass streetcars here. He didn't want both those, Mayor James didn't want both those taxes on the same day. Voters might be just overwhelmed by all that sales tax increase and say no to all of it. So Mayor James thinks there's a very good chance that having both votes on the same day is going to hurt that streetcar vote.
You know, there's some interest. I mean, Jay Nixon is on the same side as Rex Sinkfield on this election. In the bedfellows, the strange bedfellows of this campaign are going to be monumental, Nick, because you'll have Claire McCaskill, labor unions, and Republicans in the legislature all on the yes side. So all of the allegiances, alliances are being scrambled as we approach this election in August.
But Kansas City does stand to gain, obviously, from this Missouri highway tax, not only with the expansion and improvement of I-70. You know, anybody going on I-70 realizes there are huge problems there. But also there's $32 million going to the streetcar project that is also in that transportation tax as well, Barbara.
I think voters in Kansas City are kind of ornery about the streetcar thing to begin with.
So that's not necessarily a positive then?
I don't see it as a positive.
Well, not only that,
personally.
but Kansas City stands to gain from projects, but stands to lose because it pays additional taxes. I mean, they're going to have to pay more when they buy baseball gloves, as the governor points out. So, you know, we've got about 60, 75 days for this campaign to unfold. It'll be fascinating to see how all the dominoes fall before voters go to the polls.
Next on Week in Review, where did all the money go? In the state of Kansas, revenues plunged again in May, leaving the state more than $300 million below estimates for the current year. Missouri revenues are also falling short of projections. In fact, sluggish revenues has forced the Department of Revenue to delay income tax refunds to around 300,000 Missourians who are still waiting for their money. Almost 2 months after tax day, 19,000 Kansans are also waiting for their tax refund checks. Why are budgets off so much in Kansas and Missouri, Steve?
Well, two different reasons, Nick. They cut taxes in Missouri. Lawmakers did. That's what's happened over there. That's why revenue is just dropping off the table
Kansas.
Kansas in a very dramatic way. Thank you. In Missouri, a different story.
I'm on your side, Steve. Give him a break, please. Okay.
In Missouri, revenue is up by half a 1%, not as much as they expected. 2 to 3% was the projected increase there. So two very different stories here, Nick.
But aren't people entitled to those refund checks, and can the state withhold it? I mean, this is now 2 months after tax day. Can they still be keeping that money?
They can withhold it and hold it back, as cash flow permits. But if I could just go back to what Steve said. In Kansas, it's more than just the income tax cuts. Kansas wildly, they got their numbers wrong. They wildly overestimated how much tax revenue they were going to receive in April and May, to the tune of over $300 million. And that is what's putting them in an even deeper hole than they're already in.
And the statement from Governor Brownback's office was interesting, blaming part of it on the fiscal cliff and part of it on people cashing out their any major savings they had before a capital gains tax changes went into effect, which would be some phenomenally savvy accounting by everyone in Kansas to have everyone suddenly sell to get to a $300 million shortfall.
Well, speaking of Sam Brownback, a story in the Washington Post this week on governors' races to watch around the country began this way. If you're an incumbent running for re-election like Governor Sam Brownback, the headline, "Sources FBI examines lobbying by Brownback lobbyists," is never a good thing. It's been 6 weeks now since that story first broke of how the FBI is reportedly investigating some of the Kansas governor's closest allies who allegedly use their political access to illegally make business deals. But what has happened with that investigation? Do we know, Dave Helling?
Well, we don't officially. The FBI has never really, of course, officially confirmed they're even doing an investigation, but just in some conversations with folks over the last couple of weeks, whatever they're looking at, and it seems to be a broad range of activities, is going to take some time to pursue. And as I wrote a couple of weeks ago, FBI investigations are launched lots of times, and lots of times they come up with nothing, or at least nothing that is illegal. The behavior here may be, even if there's no illegality, there may certainly be some political criticism, and you can expect Democrats to raise that as they approach the November election. But the legality of it is something the FBI will take a lot of time on and may come up empty. It happens a lot. We'll see what happens.
6 weeks after this story broke, has it had any impact on his election campaign?
Well, they don't have to find anything for it to be politically damaging. And you can still have FBI and Sam Brownback in headlines from now till November, and it's going to hurt. But Brownback is still going to be buoyed by the fact that he is running in Kansas and will have a huge registration advantage, and running in a non-presidential year. The kind of folks who might come to the polls, Democratic voters who get excited in presidential years, might just stay home in a midterm year. And Paul Davis, I think a lot of people probably still can't pick him out of a lineup.
Yes. Yeah, it is damaging for the FBI to be investigating you, but when you're also $300 million in the hole, it is doubly damaging. That's what Brownback.
But has it helped his Democratic opponent, Paul Davis, as Garrett Haake is talking about, the House Minority Leader in Kansas?
No question about it.
It has?
We've gone from a situation where this is supposed to be a heavily favored governor winning re-election, that kind of year, to a state where there's going to be a race for governor here, Nick, because of all the things we're talking about here, including we haven't mentioned the downgrading of bond ratings in Kansas. There's a whole host of things that have stacked up here. Governor Sam Brownback is a conservative Republican, a religious man. He's never been tainted at all by any sense of corruption. All that has changed now.
But as Garrett pointed out, though, a lot of people couldn't pick out Paul Davis in a lineup.
Not yet, and they haven't really gotten rolling yet. And, I suspect by the time Brownback's campaign team gets through, everybody will have seen Paul Davis's picture, probably standing beside President Obama, closely tied to the Obama policies.
Kathleen Sebelius.
Yeah,
But
the
the Democrats in Kansas across the board are really making a bit of a comeback, Nick. It's not just Paul Davis. They have been able to field credible candidates in most federal elections, in some statewide elections. That wasn't the case 2 or 2 years ago. There is a sense that Kansas may be snapping a little bit back to the center. We'll see how it turns out. Sam Brownback is still the favorite in that race, of course, as are all the Republicans, but the Democrats are making some move.
The table is really set there. I mean, but this is going to prove that candidates matter. Can Paul Davis take advantage of all of these chinks in the armor that Brownback had developed?
Is the Age of Civility dead? A new UMKC-based civility project launched this week with the help of Kansas City area Congressman Kevin Yoder and Emanuel Cleaver. It's called the Village Square. The initiative is designed to get Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals talking to each other on a range of issues and problems.
We have political tribalism at the highest level that I think it has ever been, and it's exacerbated by the fact that we have 24-hour news coverage. And on top of that, we have news coverage that is, in my estimation, designer coverage. And that is, people can go watch the news that will confirm what they already believe.
It's much easier to demonize somebody that you don't know. One of the main reasons I know Emanuel so well and why we can work together is we fly to go there every week. I got to make sure he gets on the plane. I mean, Jerry Moran left him behind one time. He got on the plane and went on and left Emanuel sleeping in the lobby. I pledge not to do that. All right? That's a failure of political discourse if you leave your wingman behind in the airport.
If we're liberal, we turn on MSNBC and we go, oh, I knew my opinions were right. Or if I'm conservative, I turn on Fox. And I get the same sort of reinforcement. And so what happens is, as the congressman sort of said, we have all this reinforcement all the time. What the Village Square is designed to do is to say, folks, we're creating a space for the people that would like to be involved in discussing issues of their community and the nation with people that don't agree with them, but do it in a way that's civil, not because we're going to make conservatives liberals or liberals conservative. That's really not the point. That's not even the problem. The problem is we can't have a meaningful conversation with each other in the public space anymore, and this is an attempt to grab it back.
That's UMKC Professor Alan Katz, a former ambassador to Portugal, who is leading the Village Square, which will launch dinner programs and events starting this fall. You can learn more at tothevillagesquare.org. Getting Democrats and Republicans in the same room on an issue, breaking bread together and then having a conversation. Is that the way to break down polarity and incivility, Barbara?
I would say we just do it. You know, I mean, God bless them. Kevin Yoder and Emanuel Cleaver, they have been talking about this and, in fact, using the same punchlines for several years. You know, just do it already.
Steve?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a terrific effort. It's exactly where you need to be. Something needs to be done to begin to break the gridlock in Washington. The Village Square faces a very big hurdle, though, and that is, can you engage the far right of the Republican Party, a wing of the party that's not inclined to compromise and engage in this way? That's going to be the challenge of this organization. But hey, what a terrific thing to be doing. I think they're doing exactly the right thing.
Yeah.
Dave?
Congress, the important thing is not just to talk about these things, but to actually do it. Congress, Nick, is done for the year. Done. They're not going to pass anything in 2014, but they will consider lots of bills, all designed to try and embarrass the opposition and provide material for campaign commercials. That's what's the problem in our government. The idea that we need to sit down and solve problems has vanished, and it becomes an opportunity for both parties to try and embarrass the other. That's what they need to be working on, rather than, you know,
Can we just have a group hug on this program, though, Garrett?
I think we should.
Yes.
I think he pointed out there's sort of two structural problems that have to get addressed, and I think this is an incredibly noble effort. But first, on the television side, both men are absolutely right about the sort of confirmation bias that exists in cable TV. The only Democrats you'll see on Fox News and the only Republicans you'll see on MSNBC are generally straw men there to sort of take a beating and try to defend positions when they're hopelessly outnumbered. And the other structural problem is gerrymandering. Neither one of those two men is going to get a serious challenge from someone on the other party that might force them to be a little bit more central in what they actually vote for.
Well, again, you can take part in tothevillagesquare.org starting this fall. You can go to their website. The director of the Veterans Hospital in Wichita has informed the state's 2 U.S. senators that the hospital kept a secret waiting list of patients that was found to have endangered veterans, and that 9 veterans waited more than 90 days for an appointment with a primary care doctor. Now, just 2 weeks ago on this program, we were told there were currently no concerns here. Has that changed, Dave Helling?
Yes, Roy Blunt yesterday said that he's been able to get confirmation from the local Kansas City VA that there was a version of a so-called secret waiting list in the cardiac unit. He's quite concerned about that. There's also a concern involving VA treatment outside of the hospital here, but in a clinic nearby. This seems to be increasingly a systemic approach from lots of VA hospitals react to a chronic problem, which is they don't have enough doctors and they can't see everybody as quickly as they need to see them. And Kansas City is not immune from that.
Barbara.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm beginning to wonder if they'll find any clean VA hospitals and systems in the nation. Yeah, they're finding all kinds of structural problems. It takes way too long for the VA to hire doctors, for one thing. You know, the medical school graduates, they get out and they get jobs, and the VA's still filling out paperwork. There's a lot of issues like that. Another thing, Nick, we have heard from the Missouri and Kansas Hospital Associations, and they say, you know, a lot of these veterans fall into the category in Missouri and Kansas where if they could just get Medicaid, under the Medicaid expansion limits of the Affordable Care Act, they could go to a doctor and cut some of this waiting lists.
Garrett.
You talk about whether or not we'll find any clean VA programs. Let me be a lot cynical here and say that I don't think you will find any, because here's what's happening all around the country. Every campaign manager, Democrat or Republican, is saying this is as much as this is an absolute disaster for veterans, there's never been a bigger winning issue for any politician in either party to stand up for vets, to fight government waste and bloat and excess. I mean, this is sort of a campaign manager's dream. So every politician worth his salt is going to investigate this aggressively.
And there's going to be a real rush here of reporters looking at voting records for members of Congress, folks who have voted against increased funding for the VA back before this was a huge issue across the country. There's a lot of hypocrisy going on here, too. Members of both parties who haven't been inclined to go along and vote for increased funding.
But there is a new bill, and that includes having a new clinic in Johnson County. Is that correct?
Right, and there are various legislative approaches being discussed, including expanding private care for veterans. This is not a problem just that has cropped up in the last couple of years.
Okay, and that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers. Thank you for watching. I'm Nick Haynes from all of us here at KCPT. Thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.